Good morning, everybody. This is Pauline Chung from the San Mateo Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing. Welcome. Today, we have Rusty Gaillard with us, and he is an entrepreneur, speaker, trainer, and a life coach. He left his Apple job last year after 14 years in leadership in roles with supply chain and finance to start his own coaching business. His mission is to empower people to make the changes they want in their life so they can live a life they love. He is certified with the Life Mastery Institute, which is the premier training center for the transformational coaching. He has spoken to groups all around the Bay Area. We're very happy to have him with us today, and he is actually a San Mateo resident. So welcome, Rusty. I will monitor the chat for you, and right now we have 8 people on the call. I'll leave the waiting room open for a little bit, but you can go ahead and share your screen and take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline. Let me get this set up. Okay, so India, 1930. There is a young boy who is addicted to sugar. He's just obsessed with it. He eats sugar all the time. And his mom is concerned. So she gets the boy and she decides to go seek help. They bundle up and they go outside and they walk for miles, takes several hours in the hot blazing sun to go seek some help. And she arrives and she has gone to see Mahatma Gandhi. So she goes up to Gandhi and she says, "Mr. Gandhi, my son is eating too much sugar. Please tell him to stop." And Gandhi looks at this woman and he says, "Please come back in a few weeks. I can't tell him that right now." And the woman is confused. She's come a long way, but she packs up and leaves because he has turned her away. And 2 weeks later, she repeats the same journey. She gets all the things together. They go through the long journey. They go back and she says, "Mr. Gandhi, I'm back. Please tell my son that he's eating too much sugar to stop." Gandhi looks at the boy and he says, "You know, son, sugar is not good for you. You should not eat so much." And the boy nods and gives his agreement. And as she's turning to leave, the mother is a little confused and she turns around and says, "Mr. Gandhi, why did you ask me to come back?" And Gandhi looks at her and he says, "Mother, 2 weeks ago, I was eating a lot of sugar myself." Today, I'm going to talk to you about living your best life now, but I'm going to talk to you about that in the context of leadership. And that story I just shared with you is something I shared because I think it's a great characteristic of a leader, is someone who's not willing to tell someone else to do something that they're not willing to do themselves. And so why am I talking about leadership and how is that related to living your best life now? Because if you want to live your best life, you have to be a leader. You have to be a leader for yourself, first of all, and perhaps for those around you. As I talk about leadership, and I mentioned the phrase leadership, and I start to bring this up, I'm curious, who for you do you think about as a great leader? Who comes to mind for you when you think about a great leader, somebody that you respect or admire as a particularly powerful, influential leader? When I thought about this, there was a couple of different categories that came to mind. One category was business leaders. So I think about people like Steve Jobs or Jack Welch or Jeff Bezos. I also thought about people who are leaders in society, like Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. And I've thought about people who were leaders in their own life, but in being a powerful leader in their own life, they impacted the world around them. Think about people like Rosa Parks or Malala. And you might even have someone in your own life, whether that's a teacher or a parent or a friend who you see as a very strong leader. So most of us want to have an impact on the world. We want to have a better life. We want to step forward in life. And to do that requires leadership. And whether you're a business leader or a leader in society, or just a leader leading yourself, and in doing so, setting a model and impacting the people around you. At any level, leadership is required to live the kind of life that you want to have and to have the kind of impact that you want to have on the world. So with that as background, my intention for today is to share with you 3 keys of successful leadership. But I don't want to just give you an academic understanding of these things. I want you to get something that you can take action with and walk away with and apply in your life, that you're empowered to do that. So I'm going to start with something that's foundational before I get into the leadership piece. It's foundational about how we create the life that we're living today. And it's what I call the results formula. And it's quite simple. It looks like this. The results formula is that your thoughts cause your feelings cause your actions, and your actions cause your results. Now, I'm going to break that down for a minute. So just bear with me. And if you think about your thoughts causing your feelings, to test that out, I'm going to invite you into a little experiment with me. This is very simple. Just think this and believe it for one moment, that I lost my wallet. Think that for yourself. I lost my wallet. If you're like me, even thinking that thought gives you a little flutter of anxiety or nervousness. I can feel it in my body. That is a direct example of how your thoughts can impact your feelings. And your feelings impacting your actions. I was chatting with Pauline earlier before we started, and she was telling me before coronavirus and all of this, that these meetings were held in person. And it was a live event over lunch, and you would walk in and you would see people. And you can imagine coming into that for the first time and not knowing anybody, you might be feeling a little bit nervous, kind of wondering, am I going to know anyone, how it's going to go? Well, your actions are going to reflect that, as opposed to having done this for 6 months. And when you walk in, you're going to see a bunch of people that you know and you're looking forward to, and you haven't seen them in a number of weeks. And you're feeling excited and energetic, and your actions are going to reflect that. So it's just a simple example to help you see that your feelings drive your actions. I think we all understand our actions drive our results. And so it's pretty linear. It's from your thoughts drive your feelings, and that drives your actions, which drive your results. Now, here's the challenge with this. Most people think this works exactly opposite. What do I mean by that? I mean, most of people look outside of themselves at the circumstance they're in, at their environment, and say, those are the things that are causing me to think and feel this way. And they're causing me to do this and get the results that I'm getting in my life. For example, I am so frustrated because the traffic was bad this morning, or my boss was acting mean to me today, and I'm feeling really hurt and angry by that. Or I can't get the kind of promotion that I want at work, or I'm not getting the sales targets that I want because of this uncertainty, this economic and cultural uncertainty that we're living in at this moment. It's very easy to look outside of us and blame blame our current results on the situations and circumstance around us. But that's not how it works. Because our results, if you just look at the formula very easily, our results start with our thinking. Nowhere in here does it say the world outside of us is to blame for our results. So it's a foundational principle here that we have 100% agency, 100% responsibility for the results that we create in our life. So if you want to shift the results that you have in your life, if you want to elevate those up to another level, how do you do that? Where do you start? Well, it should be pretty obvious. You start by changing your thinking. And when you change your thinking, your feelings and your actions go along with it. So that's a foundational principle here that's just basically explains that we are responsible for the results that we create in our life. And if we embrace that, then we start to think about leadership and say, where do we want to go and what's important? So I'm going to share with you now the first of the 3 keys of successful leadership. And the first one is to embrace discomfort. When I say embrace discomfort, I don't mean to hold it tight and wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about looking at your discomfort long enough to understand it, to acknowledge it, and to learn from it. And when I talk about discomfort specifically, I think there's two ways that you can talk about this. You can talk about it in terms of your longing and your discontent. Longing is more of a pull kind of energy. It's pulling you forward towards something that you would like. And discontent is more of a push energy. It's pushing you out of a situation that's uncomfortable. And so it's a pull for more and a push out of something that's uncomfortable. And these two energies can be really powerful signals of an opportunity for growth. Because our dreams and our goals are often born out of the challenges that we face. Before we got started here, I was chatting with Pauline and we were talking a little bit about my background. And I want to just share a little bit about how I came to be here today. Because I spent 25 years in the corporate world, and the last 13 of those, roughly, working at Apple. At the end of that, the last 4 years that I was there, I was ready for a change. I knew I wanted to do something different. I was fully ready, but I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do, and I didn't know how to do it. So I knew I wanted to change, but I didn't know what it was, how to do it, and I got to the point where I started to wonder, am I ever going to make this change? Because this went on for 4 years. And I got to the point where I started to think, well, maybe I just have to tough it out. I'm just going to grind it out and, maybe 10 more years until retirement, and then I can go do what I want to do. So I just wonder, have any of you ever been in a situation where you thought that way? That thinking of, well, I'm just going to have to tough it out, or I just have to wait for things to get better, for the environment to change, for this opportunity to show up. That's the thinking that I had at that moment. So I would look for jobs, and I actually found some jobs, but they weren't what I wanted because I didn't know what I wanted. I remember when that changed, and the way it changed was when I discovered some of the thinking that was limiting me. So some of those thoughts were, I will always work at a big corporation. I will always work for someone else. And I can't make money doing work that I really enjoy doing. So I saw those beliefs that I held. And once I was able to set them down, I was able to realize that I wanted to work with people in improving their lives, just as I wanted to improve my own. So I remember the day that I signed up to get trained and certified as a coach, because part of me was so excited for this. And I will be honest, part of me was terrified. What am I doing? 25 years in a corporate career? I'm going to walk away from that to go become a coach. I'm going to go from an expert in my field to a beginner. And what if the whole thing fails? What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? So all of those thoughts raced through my mind. But fortunately, I decided to go with the part of me that was ready to move forward. And over the next 18 months or so, in the study and application of this work, I've seen over and over again how it is that our thinking is what holds us back. And by shifting that in myself, I have unlocked so much opportunity in my life. And I'm happier. I'm a happier person in my work, in my relationships, in where I live, in my sense of freedom and fulfillment in life. And I share that with you not to boast in any kind of way, but just as an example of how limiting our thinking can be. And when we can shift that, how empowering it can be. So it's going to bring me now to the second principle of successful leadership that I want to share with you, which is about designing your success. Now, if you look at that story I just shared with you about myself, I was looking for a job. I wanted a job, but I didn't know what I wanted. So I would go out and I would interview and I would get opportunities, but I would turn them down because it wasn't the right thing. If you think a little bit about like if you were to build a house and you went in and you talked to the architect and you said, just build me a great house. I want to have an amazing house that I love living in. What's the architect going to do? They're going to look at you and say, yeah, well, what does that mean to you? What is a great house to you? Is that formal? Is it informal? Is it spacious and large? Is it small and cozy? What is great? And in the same way, you need to get clear about what is your vision for what it is that you want in your life. You need to think about that and bring some clarity to it. And when I talk about the vision for your life, I just want to give you a simple framework that I like to use to talk about life whole. And what that is in the bottom right is your health, your relationships, your work, and your sense of freedom and fulfillment. And all of those things have to work together in order to have fulfillment in your life. Because I know from my own personal experience, and I see this over and over again with other people, when there is one element of your life that is not working, then it tends to affect all of the areas of life. So when you think about your vision for life, what matters to you, think about all of these different aspects and just set aside the limiting beliefs for a moment and just ask yourself, if you could have an amazing life in each one of these areas, what would that look like for you? I was thinking about this question this summer because our grand plans that I've been planning for over a year and a half for this summer just fell apart because we were going to travel to Spain. And we would have been there right now, as a matter of fact. And it just didn't feel right. And as we were leading up to this, we decided to cancel the trip, which I think is the right decision. And yet I was disappointed. I had never been to Spain. I was looking forward to going to Spain. It was going to be a great adventure with my family. And so I was disappointed. And to be honest, there was a part of me that was avoiding the discomfort of planning the summer. So go back to that first key that I shared with you, is just face the discomfort, embrace it, because that points in the direction of change. And I was uncomfortable out the summer. I was nervous about it. I have a 13-year-old son, and without any further direction, he would be very happy to sit in front of the computer all day. But I'm not okay with that as a parent. And I've got work to do. And so how do we balance all of these things, and recognizing that we're at home and things are starting to change, but there's still some uncertainty around the safety of being out in the world. So how do I craft a plan for summer that acknowledges that? Well, for a couple of weeks, I was avoiding it. And so I recognized, I'm uncomfortable with that. So that was the first thing, embrace that. And then the second part is to build a vision for it. And so I asked myself the question, what was it going to Spain that was attractive to me? Well, a sense of adventure, doing something new, being with family, having some time away from the normal routine. And so I started wondering, well, let me get curious. How could I build some of those attributes into the summer, recognizing the constraints that we have? And one of the ideas I came up with is, I love camping and my family enjoys camping. And so I said, let's go spend some time outside. And so just in the last week, we booked 2 different trips to go camping this summer. And I just offered that as a very simple example of, yes, we have to acknowledge the world around us, but we don't let that dictate our experience. Just because I can't go to Spain does not mean I have to stay home and not go anywhere all summer. I can still have that experience of family time, time out of the house, adventure, some new things. All of those things that I could have gotten in Spain, I can get elsewhere. And so how do you apply that in your life and craft a vision for what it is that is important to you, recognizing that you can achieve it? Which brings me really to the third point that I want to share with you today, which is to focus on possibilities, not problems. I could very easily have focused on the fact that we need to have a face mask and air travel is a little bit concerning and the number of cases is going up. I could focus on problems and all the reasons why it doesn't feel right to move forward. Or I could focus on possibilities. I'm going to share with you a story about a man named Bob Templeton. And Bob Templeton attended a seminar that was given by Bob Proctor, who's a famous person in this area of personal fulfillment and development. But Bob Templeton attended this seminar, and it was in Canada right after a devastating tornado had gone through. The tornado had killed over a dozen people, caused millions of dollars of damage. And while he was at the seminar, he heard an interesting thing that he had never heard of before. And it's called the law of polarity. And it means that if you can think of all the reasons why something is not possible, you by law must be able to come up with how it is possible. It's the law of polarity. If you can come up with all the reasons why it's impossible, you must be able to come up with how it is possible. He took that idea and he blended that with something else that he thought of. And his idea was he wanted to raise $3 million within 3 business days, investing no more than 3 hours of time, and use that money to help the people who were impacted by this devastating tornado. So Bob Templeton was the VP of Telemedia, which owned a string of radio stations across the eastern part of Canada. And he brought it back to his team. And he said, would you like to raise $3 million within 3 business days, investing no more than 3 hours to help all the people impacted by the tornado? And someone on the team said, how would we ever do that? And he said, hold on a minute. I didn't ask how we would do it. I just asked, would you like to do it? And that's a really important question to start with. Is this something you would like? Well, everybody agreed that it's something that they would like to do, but they were a little nervous about how, or should they, or is it possible? And so what he did is he drew up on the board a big T. And on one side of the T, he said, all the reasons why we can't do this. On the other side, he wrote how we might be able to do it. And on the first side, all the reasons why we can't, he put a big X. He said, we're not going to talk about all the reasons why we can't do this. We're just going to focus on how we might accomplish it. And if somebody brings up an idea of why it's impossible, we just say, somebody says next, and we move on to the next idea. Because ideas are like that. They just, once they start flowing, you allow them to flow. So the first thing that somebody says is, well, you know, it's quiet for a minute. And then somebody says, well, maybe we can do a national radio show across all of Canada. And right away, somebody pipes up and say, yeah, but we're a regional radio station. We don't have the ability to do that. And somebody says next. Well, so then the ideas are moving a little bit and someone says, well, maybe we can get Harvey Kirk to anchor this broadcast. And Harvey Kirk is a TV celebrity. So someone else says, yeah, but he's a TV celebrity, and next. So after this goes on for a moment, they build some momentum and they come up with a whole flood of ideas of how they might raise $3 million within 3 business days for less than 3 hours time. That was on a Friday afternoon. On Tuesday of the next week, they host the radio show across the whole nation. Harvey Kirk is the host, and they raise over $3 million to benefit the people impacted by the tornado. I love that story because it's all about focusing on possibilities rather than the problems. Now, it's important to acknowledge the reality of the situation that we're in. We don't ignore those things, but we don't let them control us. We don't let them dictate what we believe is possible. And by changing our thinking in that way to focus on how might we move forward, it's incredibly powerful and it gives us the full opportunity to accomplish that. So in summary, I want to give you these are the 3 keys that we talked about. Number 1 is embrace the discomfort. Not to camp out there, not to stay there, not to focus on it. You don't want to bring your thinking only to the discomfort because your thinking, remember, drives your results. But you want to acknowledge it and learn from it. Embrace it long enough to get the learning of what it's there to tell you. Number 2 is to design your success. Don't say, I want a great life, I want to have a great impact, but be clear with yourself about what that looks like. And then thirdly, focus on possibility, not on problems. I intentionally crafted this talk to talk about leadership in the very broadest sense. And so I ask you, when you think about leadership, what area of your life is leadership important? Is it important in your work as a leader in your work, whether that's by title or just as a position that you hold? Is that important in society? Is it important for you personally? And I believe that leadership is important in all of those areas. And so there's an invitation for you to just ask yourself where you want to be on this chart. Do you want to be inside the circle with 98% of the world, which is inside your comfort zone, surviving, fitting in, procrastinating, playing it safe? Or are you really ready to step out as a leader, to step out into change and confidence and fulfillment, and creating the life that you want to create for yourself and touching others in the way that they would like to be touched? If you're interested in exploring this further, I would love to talk to you about it. If you're ready to be part of that 2%, send me an email and let's chat. I'd love to do that. But I want to leave you with a quote, and it's a quote that I love by Margaret Mead, and it speaks directly to leadership. And I fully believe that this speaks to you and to me and to all of us here. It's never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, because indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rusty. Does anyone have any questions? You are welcome to unmute and ask your questions. The chat window is empty right now.
Okay.
Are these slides available for us?
Sure.
Okay. If you send them out to the group, send them your contact information as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also here on the screen in the bottom left. So it's got my email there.
Okay. And what is Silicon Valley Dreambuilders? That's the name of your company, right?
It is. Yeah, that's the name of my company.
Okay.
And it's all about, why Silicon Valley is the place of dreams. People come here with dreams, but I don't believe that a dream is just something that we think about at night or daydream about, that we can build it. And that's really what those leadership principles are about, is about bringing that from something that's abstract, but bringing it into clarity and then bring it into your life.
Great. Yeah, we have some comments on the chat. Thank you, Rusty. This has been fantastic. I will be in touch. Excellent. Agreed. Very inspiring. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Lots of great comments. Okay, well, I'll wrap this up today. Thank you very much. We have our 4th of July weekend coming up, and the Chamber has a fundraiser. We're doing a virtual parade since we cannot have an actual parade. We have a video parade that we're going to launch July 4th at noon on all our social media pages. And in conjunction with that, we're also launching an online auction on the Bidding for Good website. So look for that. We'll put out our announcements. A lot of great prizes have been donated. So have a great weekend. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Pauline.
Thank you.